Hello everyone, welcome to the next video in the Navigating Your Subconscious series. This is the second video, and today I'm going to be talking about images. So as you know from the last video, we have our higher self, which is buried underneath our lower self or our ego. And then at the forefront, the most forefront, we have these images. So what are images? An image is basically created from a generalization from childhood that you have decided based on a certain experience, and it's from something happening where you thought that because of a certain action that your parents did not love you. So an image is created from there. And because children's minds work differently, they really believe that they are the only ones in this situation because they cannot understand that other families and other children go through these things. So they end up creating these images because they feel like they're the only one where their parents reacted a certain way off of a behavior that they have. And that's really how images are created. And unless we heal them, we carry these images that basically once upon a time we were reprimanded for something and we created this image and we carry this into our adulthood, and it ends up blocking us in relationships, it ends up blocking us in success, in finances, in our career, and in our health as well. So these are really important to find out and try and release them, bring them to the forefront, be conscious about them, and really recognize that maturity process that you kind of have to go through, and also realize that your parents did not stop loving you at that moment. It was just something that they either reprimanded you for, or it was just a belief that your parents have that really was passed on to you, and we'll get more into that later. But one thing that might have happened is, say you had a certain trait or behavior or even an interest, and one of your parents told you that that was weird or it was strange. So then you grow up as an adult with this image that you are unacceptable in society, and it might hinder your growth in your relationships, in your friendships, or just going out to any social events because you're afraid that someone's going to judge you. So you end up either being really introverted, or you end up staying in a lot of the times, because if you stay in your home instead of going out and putting yourself out there, if you stay in your home, no one can hurt you, no one can judge you, and no one can really betray you, right? Another image that is very popular, especially with women, is really overextending yourself, sacrificing yourself for the sake of others, because either maybe you saw your mother do that, or you were really praised for self-sacrificing activities. For example, like if you had to take care of your younger siblings all the time and you were praised a lot for that, but then you were reprimanded or taught that it was bad when you said no. So you end up really, from that place, end up creating this image that if you are self-sacrificing, if you put others first, if you take care of everyone else around you, then you will be loved. So it's almost like a hero complex, right? Like you end up incorporating this into your adult personality where you put yourself last and everyone else first, and it ends up really being detrimental to your life, especially if you're doing this all of the time. And one more last example is, and we do see this a lot in men, is if you were taught that basically showing your feelings, especially like warm feelings, love feelings, if you had taught that those are weak, right? Those are weak feelings, then these men end up growing up into adults and they don't want to share their feelings. Maybe they were judged as a child for being more feminine, and that was unacceptable by either one or both of the parents. So then they create this image that by not sharing their emotions, they're more masculine and also they are more strong because only the weak share their feelings. And these images are a lot more than just limiting beliefs, right? Because as I have explained, they tend to turn into personality traits as opposed to beliefs. Like you'll see these behaviors showing up in patterns throughout your whole life almost automatically due to that image. It's not so much like I have a belief that I can't make money. It's more so this trait, this image that might be blocking you from success because you have self-sabotaging traits. And these traits are so far embedded in your subconscious, even though you can start to see them visibly or externally, you really have to go back and not find that exact moment that it happened, but just kind of learn where that came from so that you can move forward, so that you can find that freedom, so that you can change yourself and end up changing your life for the best. One more example, and I think that a lot of females tend to have this, but I'm sure some men do as well, is if you were a baby and you ended up, crying because you needed something automatically, and not like it makes any type of parents bad parents. This is just kind of how we are raised in this society. If you cry, no one, it's really taught that you don't pay attention to the child, right? You only pay attention to them when they're acting good. Because if you basically praise them when they're good, they'll tend to act more good as opposed to whining or crying for something that they need. So that doesn't mean that your parents didn't love you, and I'm pretty sure everyone is raised like this, but you end up growing up and again having this trait of not expressing your feelings, never speaking up for something that you want. So then you might have a lot of failed relationships because you don't speak up for what you really want. And you don't really understand why your relationships aren't successful. And maybe that's because people aren't mind readers, and you do have to speak up for just really to explain what you want. And because you have that trait and that knowledge that you weren't paid attention to when you did use your emotions or when you did speak up for yourself, it ends up really coming out in adulthood. So you might see these images in a lot of our flaws as adults, and you also might see these images in our frustrations, in our failures, and any type of repetitive type of situation that we may have had. And also some images are, and you don't have to believe in this, but this is just what I have learned, is that some images do come from past lives as well, which is why another really good thing to do is to clear up any type of past lives, to learn more about them, because really they explain why we're drawn to certain things. Like, for example, like I love Chinese herbal medicine. I'm not a huge fan of American herbalism. I really like how the Chinese really explain their herbalism views, their feng shui views, and also I really feel a connection to the Native American culture. Now, some other people really like the Renaissance era. They really like perhaps the African type of decorations, or you kind of get where I'm going here, but basically we have these energetic strands that we're carrying on from life to life that ends up really making us more drawn to something, or more prone to being drawn to something. And these images can come with us from life to life, because in the quantum realm, there is no such thing as time. So an image that you might have had and not have healed in a previous life can easily show up in this life. So another very important thing to do is past life regression, or clearing past lives through the Akashic records as well. But enough about that. So how do you end up releasing these images? So really the first thing that I would do is acknowledge one of the first incidents. And I don't mean like going back to when you were 2 years old. I mean like what you remember in your head that might have made you start to create this image for yourself and throughout your life. And it doesn't have to be a certain time, but just that like acknowledgement that, for example, like if you're a man and my example from before does resonate with you, when was one of the times that your dad told you in your life that it was weak to have, or your mom told you that it was weak to show emotions because you're a man? So it doesn't have to be a specific moment. It just has to be that recognition that something did occur in your life to make you believe that. And it might have not been from your parents. It might have been from friends that you picked up on that made fun of you for certain things. It might have been from other family members, or it could be from your society as well. I mean, I'm here in America and we do have a lot of social standards and norms that are really fucked up. So once you kind of start to recognize these images within yourself as an adult, you really want to go back and like investigate it. You want to pray also to your spirit team, to your guides, to help you reveal these messages. So it's not like you're alone in the shadow work journey. You have to be very, very much in communication with your spirit guides so that they can guide you to start hearing your lower self and your subconscious. Because obviously there are things in your subconscious that you don't know about consciously, which is why it's called the subconscious. So you really have to pray for these things to be shown. And although it can be very frustrating and very disappointing and sad to pray for these things to be revealed to you, because then that means that you have to go and experience life and basically be shown so you can catch yourself, so that you can really be like, oh shit, that's something that I need to look more into. But basically, so you're praying for crappy situations to come up so that you can start to recognize these things. So that's something that I find is really important and very progressive in this work, so that you can start the purification process of your subconscious. But really, you so have to find the root. You have to search for the problems, the hurts, the conflicts, the disappointments. And another great thing to do is to write them down as well. Because when you start to write them down and start to look for a common denominator, that's when you can really start to piece together these puzzle pieces as to why you have these images, what your lower self is telling you, and also so that you can really mature from that childhood self that a lot of us still live with at the forefront. So one way to start connecting to your guides, along with writing, because journaling is very, very, very important, especially when you start to become aware of these things in your daily life, when you start to write them down and you write down your reactions when you're disappointed and everything that I basically said before, conflicts, and you really are struggling, to piece all of these events back to one image, right, or one belief. So what you really do is you want to talk to your guides, and this takes a lot of practice. This doesn't happen right away, but really all you have to do is practice even 5 to 10 minutes a day if you can. Silence your mind and pray to your guides, to your ancestors, to your angels, for your subconscious to come forward and to be revealed. You can meditate on a certain question, and the more you practice, the more you're going to start hearing things that are going to help you, that are going to piece together these events, these circumstances, these patterns, these behaviors, these conflicts for you to this one like root image, and things will be revealed. And like, don't be dissuaded if you can't hear messages right away, because the ego and the lower child, which are one, they don't want to be healed. They want to be at the forefront. They don't want your higher self to come forward. So they will give you resistance, and they will give you blocks, and they will fight you on this, because once you start to heal, they start to shrink, right? And your higher self starts to grow and start to come towards the forefront. So just be aware of that. You really have to have courage, determination, patience, and a genuine intention to dissolve this bullshit that is blocking you in your life. And if you don't, then it's not going to end up working out for you. So only if you are ready would I start to look for these images and start to dissolve them. Because in shadow work, you really have to be ready to take full responsibility for yourself, for your life, for these images, for these beliefs that you have. And also stop blaming other people, outer circumstances, right? Stop blaming your job, your boss. There's no more pointing the finger at anything. It's all within yourself. And it's so important to take responsibility of this so that you can really start to see what a divine, angelic, creative being that you really are. And although that's much later on in shadow work, and that is something that you will learn in soul expansion school, you have to start the healing process first, because we're so much more human at our forefront, right? I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but we just have these hurts and these images that we live with every day. And once you start to live with that higher self, knowing that you are this powerful, creative being, your life will start to change. But you have to go through the healing process first. So you'll know you'll have an image by really just investigating your life. How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about your life? Do you have frustrations? Do you have repetitive problems? How secure are you with yourself? How do you feel intimately with others? How confident are you? How much love are you capable of giving and receiving? How much anxiety, tension, feeling of isolations, and resentment do you have in your life? Because if you do have any of those feelings, but also if you're not 100% yes, I'm confident in all of those answers, then there's some type of image that is lingering within. So unless you feel 100% confident in your life and you absolutely love it and there's nothing wrong, then there is some investigation that you do have to do. And one important thing that's really very important is when these things do start to come up and you start to have these thoughts and these experiences, and you start to realize I have this image, do not feel guilty, do not feel ashamed, and do not feel embarrassed, because everyone that does this work has their own images and naivety towards life, and there's no shame in having bad traits. There's no shame in having these false images, because we all have had them. If you start to do this work, you'll have less and less, but there's no shame. And it is tough when you start to find things out, because you feel I should be an adult, right? I should be this mature person who doesn't have these conflicts. Depending on your age, you might feel, too old to still believe that you should not be taken care of. Or if you are taken care of by your significant other, they're going to hold it above your head because maybe one of your parents did that. And it is sad, and you can go in through the sadness when you start to find them, and you can feel a little bit sorry for yourself, and you can cry if you need to, but don't judge the things that come up, is what I'm trying to say. Because when you start to judge them and you start to feel ashamed and embarrassed, they end up getting suppressed again. So you really want to acknowledge them and thank them for being in your life so that they can be acknowledged and released. And really all you have to do to release them is to bring them into your conscious, and then make an effort to start to shift those behaviors. And it's not pushing them down. It's not trying to hide them. It's not feeling guilty about them. Just this acknowledgement of, yes, I have this belief. Now I know where it came from. And I'm going to make a conscious effort to start shifting it so that you can really acknowledge, like, when it does start to come up again, oh, that's just that image. You know, there's no shame, there's no guilt. And then over time, it'll be released and you will completely dissolve that image. But again, there may be a lot of resistance because our ego and our lower self really want to cling to those illusions that you're not good enough, that you're never going to be rich, that you'll always have to struggle, that you'll never have a successful relationship, that you will be reprimanded when you show your emotions towards others. So again, you will probably experience a lot of resistance from them, but this is the best thing that you can start to do for yourself and start to really start to navigate your subconscious, is to find out your images first. So I hope you enjoyed this, and next week we'll be talking about our false needs versus our real needs, which will really help you open up to shadow work even further and start to understand your subconscious even more. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next Thursday for the third video.